Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Open Discussion with C3 Films. My name is Chris, and this is.
Cheryl.
And today we're actually continuing a conversation that we started a couple of weeks ago on You. We are talking about part two of You season four. If you have not seen it, and you're watching it, go watch it. We are spoiling the heck out of it, and it's going to ruin everything. It is better if you don't know because the second part of season four is not what we expected. So go check it out on Netflix, then come back and see what we had to say about it. But let's go ahead and jump right in. When we were talking about You season four part one, both you and I were both like, we don't know where this is going. It feels kind of cookie cutter. It doesn't feel like it's as good. Both you and I were kind of like, I don't know about this show anymore. Blah blah blah. Whatever whatever. And as soon as when it came out, I started watching it basically right away. And when I was watching it, I remember when I got to the episode where the big twist happens, and I remember thinking to myself when he opened the door and the guy didn't recognize him, I was just kind of like, why is he pretending like he doesn't recognize him? And they have this whole conversation, and he's like, I don't know who you are, and I don't know who you're talking about. And then he kills him, and all of a sudden he walks out again in a suit and starts talking to and starts talking to him and starts talking to Jonathan. Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting names now. But starts talking to him, and you're just
Joe.
like, Joe, thank you, Joe. Joe Goldberg. He starts talking to Joe, and you're like, what is happening? And then that's when the show like really shows you like what it's been holding in its back pocket this entire time, because we were talking about on our show how we like Joe as a character, but we have to remember that he's a murderer and he's done some things, but yet we're still rooting for him. And then in this show, in this season, they remind you, no, Joe is a murderer. Joe is a psychopath. Joe hurts people, and he is not the good guy. He is the bad guy, and it is fantastic. I love the fact that they leaned into it.
I think I feel like I've had like a little bit of a different experience. So, from what I remember, we kind of talked about how there was a shift in the you where it's no
Mm-hmm.
longer him referring to the you. His obsession is not a female,
Right,
whereas it's kind of switched gears into like who is this person, and
right.
like that stays consistent throughout the rest of the season, but he still has this obsession with
Mm-hmm.
a woman. I do like the twists that they have. My problem though is actually when he does kill Reese.
Mm-hmm.
I immediately thought, like, just based off of his reaction, because he's like, I don't know who you are. I was like, does Reese have a twin?
Yeah, I thought
That's
that
what
too
my
for a
thought
second.
was. And then as soon as I realized that it was his, it's actually like a figment of his imagination, and it's his bad half, like his
Mm-hmm.
dark side. I was like, oh my gosh, this is Fight Club. And then I was like, you ruined it. Like, you just did Fight Club, and now I'm like upset. And
Oh no.
yeah. But like, to be honest, like, it was a little hard to watch because
Mm.
I think at the beginning, before the twist was revealed, I was a little bored.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I started watching it, and then I stopped watching because I was like, I stopped paying attention. I was like, I need to just watch this later. We're not doing it for the show yet, so I'll just wait until like I have to watch it. So I might
Mm-hmm.
have never finished it unless we were gonna do this show
Mm-hmm.
because I got bored. But then when we got back into it to watch it, I was like, okay, I better start from the beginning, like the very beginning, but the beginning of episode 6.
Okay.
Um, I started getting bored at the same place, and I actually paused it, and I was like, I stopped paying attention, and like rewinded and watched it. So it was about the time where Joe's talking to Phoebe at the bar about how I think she's saying something about So I don't even remember because I was so checked out at the time. But it was like kind of very early on. But like once I got past that, it started getting interesting again. And then the twist happened, and we were wondering who that like photographer was, and I thought like maybe she was from
America.
yeah, and that
Yeah.
she recognized Joe and she was trying to take a picture of him so that she could like compare
Mm-hmm.
the photos and stuff. So this is another one of those moments where you're like rooting for your main character even though your main character is like a bad person, and then you're like, how's he gonna get out of it? How's he gonna get out of it? And like, and that I kind of like. But then when the whole Fight Club thing started happening, that's when I was like, I don't know if I like this because it's like already been done before, and like
Mm-hmm.
this is kind of almost exactly like Fight Club,
Mm-hmm.
because then we have to like rewind to like the whole parts of the beginning of the season that we, you know, the first 5 episodes that we saw like long before, and then we're like, oh yeah, he was never with anyone, like they were never really engaged in conversation, like, you know, it all like makes sense now, it all fits together. But what I did feel redeeming is that like my whole thing with like the last season is that I felt like he was perfectly matched with Love, because
Mm-hmm.
he could be who he wants to be with her, like he could be his open true self with her, and so it like made sense to me. And then he goes and ruins it all, and then he wants to be with Marion, and like Marion's like another regular person, and then now we have Kate, and at the end of the season he kind of like
Mm-hmm.
tells her the truth, and she's like cool with it. But then there's this whole like agreement where like she's like, I know you think I'm good, but I'm not, and I need you to be the person that helps me stay good, and I'll be that person for you too. And I was like, oh, this is even better. So
Mm-hmm.
I felt like that was really great. But then I find out that he kills the guy to keep
Mm-hmm.
the his student quiet. What's her name? Nadia.
Yeah.
He kills her boyfriend and then frames her for it to keep her quiet. And I'm like, oh man, Joe is like a horrible person now. It didn't get better at all because like you wanted him to become a better person, and I thought like, oh, it's gonna end with him redeeming himself with Kate, and he's gonna live like they're gonna lead better lives together. But then like then it kind of like twists you around again, and you're like, they're ending it with it being worse than the beginning.
Yeah, and see, I actually, so I like that a lot because the whole thing about Joe's journey is that he's always been telling himself that he's a good person. He's always like, I'm a good person. I'm doing this for them. I'm doing this for love. I'm doing, and like the like lowercase Love, and and it's like it's easy for us to believe him. We're like, oh yeah, the people that he's killed, they're bad people. Like he's only killed like bad people, but he's still like killing people. And when he killed Beck's like friend in season 1, she wasn't really a bad person. She was like toxic, yes, but she definitely didn't deserve to die. Um, and so like he's killing like all these people, but he's feeling justified in what he's doing to make himself not look like he's as bad of a human being. And he that happens throughout. That happens up until season 3, and then we get to season 4, and it's like, okay, he seems like he's a good person, and it also seems like it steers away from him being obsessed over a woman. But then we find out, no, he's still been obsessed over a woman. He's still built the classic cage, and he's still been kind of holding her hostage because he's at war with himself because he thinks he's a good person, and that's what he's trying to be. But he's actually all the actions he's doing are not the actions that a good person takes. So when we get to the end and he's just like starts leaning into it more, I like it because it feels like we made a different breakthrough. The breakthrough is that, yeah, actually all the things I've done, they actually have been bad, and that's just kind of who I am now. So I guess now I'm just gonna move forward with this knowledge. So for me, it feels like a progression for the character because of the fact that up until this point, he's been doing nothing but lying to himself the entire time, and through his lies, it's easy for us to root for him and get behind him because we're like, yeah, you're the good guy, but no, actually, no, 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 you're a creep and you're a murderer and you're actually terrible. And this was, I think, a stamp to remind us by the end to say, yes, that he absolutely is. And I think that's the reason that I like it. It's like, yeah, I think you're right about like the Fight Club nature of it, because I remember having a little moment to myself of being like, okay, so yeah, he's crazy and he made his other self of him, blah blah blah. But I think because of how where it led to and where it ended with him like just accepting the fact that he's not the good guy, I think that's what I really liked because that felt like an actual progression for the character where he wasn't just doing the same kind of actions that he's always been doing for the past like 3 seasons leading into this one.
Yeah, I feel like I had the same kind of feeling as I did in like the previous episode where it kind of starts off slow and then it's like
Mm-hmm.
up and down for me where like I have moments where I think this is like one of because with like other shows I don't usually feel like I need to take a break from it. But for
Mm-hmm.
you, I always feel like I need to take a break because all this stuff just keeps happening, but like it's like one after another. I feel like I'm just getting slapped over and over again, but it's all like very compressed. So here I am just like, all right, this is like kind of slow. It's getting a little boring. I'll just come back to it later. And then then it gets intense. And then you get this anxiety where you're like worried about people in the show, like not just
Mm-hmm.
Joe's character, but like other characters like the innocence and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like Theo from the previous season, like I was really worried for. I had to pause it because I was like, I am too afraid to continue watching because I'm worried about what's gonna happen to him. I need to pause and take a break. I had that same feeling again when like he meets Kate's dad, and then
Yeah.
he leans in. And he's like, Joe.
No, you're
And
right.
I paused it and I was like, oh my God, I need a break. There's so much anxiety. And like I kind of like the show for that it like gets me so anxious that like I feel like I need to pause it. So it still is like very much a roller coaster for me. It's a little bit different than the previous seasons, but I agree that it's a cool twist. Like I like that they were doing something new and different. And now that I think about it, the new you was himself. So
Yeah.
that's an interesting twist to put on it. And even though I didn't really like parts of it, I do like the ending. I do like
Mm-hmm.
what they did with it and how like it's not like they made me think that it was gonna be something boring and then
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't. Like there was a big twist and after the big twist there was even more of a twist. So and that's the kind of show that I like to watch is where like you just really don't know what's gonna happen. But this is a little different because I thought I knew it was gonna happen, but it didn't.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that caught me off guard.
No, I agree. And like I actually had pause moments too. The pause moment that stands out to me the most was with Marianne when we thought that she had died. And because I did not want that character to die simply because all the other women before her have died, and I kind of wanted her to survive because I knew that if she escaped, she wouldn't say anything because she wouldn't want him to come after her. So, and the difference with her is that she had a kid when all the other ones didn't, except obviously Love had a kid that he left behind. But and once again, and kind of like with Barry, he didn't want to kill her. He in his heart of hearts, he did not want to have to kill Marianne. So he was trying to find every contrivance imaginable to make sure that he would not kill her. He was even thinking about ending his own life in order to achieve that. So like him trying to be a better like him trying to be a better person because he's still always fighting with himself until that moment when he jumps and then he survives and then he kind of accepts himself for who he is. But at that point, he also thinks that Marianne has died, and I'm glad. And that was something that I kind of I felt like could happen, but I wasn't sure because they did the whole thing of her and Nadia saying I have a plan, but it's crazy, and then we didn't hear what the plan was. So I was like, okay, so that means the plan probably is going to work because we have to figure out what the plan was. If they had set the plan, then it wasn't going to work because that's just something they always do in television or movies. Um, so when she died, I paused because I was like, I really hope y'all didn't kill her because that feels like a terrible end for this character after everything that she's gone through. Um, and then, turns out that they didn't, and she goes back. She's with her daughter, and and then Joe's been exonerated by the end of the season. Like everything that happened, like because now he has resources with Kate, and it makes it look like he was the victim in that situation with Love, and now he has his old name back. He's able to come. It's like a really strange like reset button where he is able to have his old life again, but he has his old life with more money and more, I guess, opportunities in front of him where he can like lean into his dark fantasies. And I agree where I'm like this thing with Kate is even better because now he's admitted to who he is to her and she's admitted who she was to him, but it feels like they it feels like if there since there's probably going to be a season 5, he is probably going to keep leaning into being a terrible person. He probably is going to keep trying to hurt people. So this whole thing where they were saying we'll keep each other from being the worst versions of ourselves, that clearly is not going to happen.
Yeah, it's definitely not going to happen, especially when you could see, like, they basically ended it with him saying that he's accepted his dark side. And not only has he accepted it, but he's embracing it. So he's no longer going to try to justify his murders. He's probably not going to hold back. He's already shown us that he won't because he kills Nadia's boyfriend and frames her for it. The thing that kind of bugs me is that, like, and I get why they made it this way, but part of me was hoping that, he would pull another one of those things where he sets his prisoner free,
Yeah.
and like things are cool. Like he let that one guy go back in like season 2 or something, and then I mean,
The guy who
cause
played the Penguin in Gotham.
yeah, yeah, his like his not dealer, but like his passport guy, his fake ID guy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then he doesn't. I guess he doesn't really let things are cool. Um, but then I guess he didn't really let that couple go. I forget their names, but in the
No,
previous season,
I forgot about them,
they
but no,
survived. He didn't really let them go, but I guess he didn't have to kill them either because they only ever saw Love, and like
mm-hmm.
he was just kind of just trying to manage things. So like they knew that Love was a murderer, not him. But then he
Mm-hmm.
also killed himself off, so there was no need for them to die. And then, of course, Theo survives. But that was also Love's doing. So there were, like, not everyone perishes that, when they come across him. So, in that sense, like, he is kind of a good guy because he doesn't want to kill people. But I think he actually does. It's just
Mm-hmm.
not everyone is justified. And now he's like, I don't need to justify it. And with this new power that he has from Kate, he's no longer going to have to hold back. And they showed us that. So, I don't know. I just wish, like, because they kind of set it up in a way where, like, if he had let Marion go, and, like, they kind of ruined that because there was like a whole mishap and where she like fakes her death before he could even set her free. And
Mm-hmm.
then like another thing that would have kind of made them go, oh, he is actually not a bad guy, is if he actually did kill himself, and then they
Mm-hmm.
find out on the news and stuff that he died, they'd be like, oh, he is like, he was for real. But because he lives and then he does all this other stuff, like they'll never they'll never have seen that part of him where
Yeah.
he was truly being a good person and now he's just completely a bad person, and there's no way for them to see that. So I wonder if that's going to come to play in the next season. Kind of interested to see what are they going to do now? What's going to be different now? But in this case, they've already set him up for doing something different. So I already don't know what's going to happen next season. And all the previous seasons, like, you just kind of like, oh, it's going to reset. It's going to be another repeat season. Like, I'm always like, oh, well, what are they going to do now that's different? Like, how are they going to make this different? But now it's a little different because I kind of already know that it's set up for something different. And it's just kind of like, what are they going to do with it?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a season we're going into where the structure isn't in place. I felt like that a little bit about that with season 3 when we went into it, but then I remembered that at the end of season 2, when he was married to Love, it ends with him looking at his neighbor and being like, "Hello, you," and then that's the way the season ends. So you're like, "Oh, okay, so you're going to be doing the same thing with it into season 3." And then even with season 3, he was going at the end of season 3, he went to I think went to Paris to Marianne. So all these seasons led to hit like ended with him find and end of season 1 he found love. So it was always ending with him looking for somebody else. So but this is the one time where it's like it ends the season, he has his person, he's not looking for somebody else. He is in like a better position than he's ever been in any other season. Like part
and
of me
he's
is wondering,
open
like,
to killing.
and he's open to killing. So I'm like, is the next season going to be about taking this guy down? Like, is he like actually going to be a legitimate villain, and we're going to be following other people trying to like take him out? So I'm curious if the next season is going to be the last season, because I don't know that too much there's too many more places for them to go with this. And to tell you the truth, I don't want them to continue these seasons for too many more, because I feel like they're reaching a good stopping point soon. And I like the actor. I like how they do the inner like monologues and stuff. Like, it's really good. It works. It like worked great in Dexter. It works for this. It's like I like it. So, but I don't want it to go on for too long, because that was one of the problems with Dexter, is that it went on for too long and then it kind of lost the steam.
Yeah, exactly. The ending of Dexter was a disappointment, but that's not our conversation for today. But for you, like, I thought this was gonna be the last season, because they brought back all the previous characters. They brought back Beck. They brought back Love. They brought back who else did they bring back? I forget who else they brought back, but like, I was like, oh, if they're bringing back Beck, like, this is definitely the last season. Like, this is gonna, be Geo. And I thought he was really gonna die, but then they brought him back, and I was like, oh, this is really not going how
you
thought it was gonna go. Like, I'm continuing to be surprised by what's happening. But then, like, how it ends, I was like, I feel like they could have just. It really could just end that way. Like, if they didn't make another season, I'd be like cool with it, because I feel like they ended it like season 4 in a way where that could just be the end. But I would not mind one more season to explore this, but I hope that they find a good enough ending where it could be wrapped up in this way. Like, tread carefully, right? Because the way it is now is like fine. Like, it's a good, like, if that was the ending, that's a good ending. But now that they're adding one more season to it, I hope they can wrap it up neatly in the same way.
Yes, it has to be satisfying, and that's the challenge with these kind of shows. I think I'll be curious how they do with Barry as well when it eventually gets there. And Barry might be a little bit easier, but with him being such a killer, it makes you really wonder how can you end this in a way that feels satisfying, in a way that he gets what's coming to him, and at the same time the viewers can feel like, yeah, that's a good ending. So, like, that's a challenge when you're technically following the bad guy, because the bad guy has to lose in the end, right? They have to be punished for their crimes, or I guess, or they don't, or they aren't punished, and the viewers are just fine with that. But it feels like normally that's how you want to do it. So it's a challenging prospect, and I think it's a fine line to walk. So, you know, I think if this was the ending, it would have been great. But if it's not the ending and they're going to continue, then yeah, I agree with you. You got to be very careful because you've already had like two nice wrap ups within like your 4 seasons already. So, and they all involved him being with somebody that understands him. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, I feel like they did a pretty good job so far, especially with this last season. Season 4 was definitely, I think, the most complex
Was complex.
season that they've had so far, which I really didn't expect. So I feel like I have, high hopes for season 5. I wouldn't. I feel like they understand like how to craft, assuming they have the same people on board working on it, which I hope they don't change it. Or if they do, I hope it's for the better. But but it's promising from just the history of the previous seasons. It's promising. Otherwise, we can just try to pretend that it ended with season 4. The same way we say the last episode of Star Wars is episode 6.
Oh, snap. Well, is there anything else that you want to get off your chest? I feel like we kind of talked about everything about the season. Well, at least hit some of the main points, but anything else that was on your mind?
Well, that's it for me.
Okay. So yeah, that's what we thought about You Season 4 Part 2, everybody. What did you guys think about it? Have you watched it? Are you excited about the prospect of what Season 5 could be? Or do you kind of feel like you kind of wish that Season 4 was the end of it? Whatever you thought about it and more, comment below. Let us know. And when you're down there, if you guys would like, share, subscribe. Even if you don't, though, I have been Chris, and this has been
Cheryl, and I can't wait for you.